You don't want it because you don't have it. You want it so much because somewhere in your quantum field you already do have. And this changes everything. Because what if I told you, your deepest desires are not signals of lack, but echoes from the future? Not a wish, but a memory. Pause for a moment and feel that. The very thing you're craving, love, wealth, purpose, health, it's not calling to you. It's calling from you, from a version of you that already lives it, breathes it, embodies it. And yet that version feels impossibly distant, doesn't it? Like a parallel life just out of reach, close enough to ache for, but too far to hold. This is the paradox that traps almost everyone in the illusion of separation. You want it so badly, but the wanting becomes the wall. Let me show you why. Desire, when born from wholeness, is magnetic. It guides timelines. But desire, when charged with lack, becomes distortion. It collapses reality into the frequency of I don't have. And what most people never realize is that the field, the quantum substrate of possibility, doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. It responds to your coherence, your embodiment, your signature vibration. So when your wanting is tangled with resistance, your signal becomes unclear. The wave never collapses into the reality you seek, because you're still vibrating as the version of you who's waiting, not the one who's receiving. This is not just spiritual poetry, it's physics. Heisenberg showed us that the act of observing changes the outcome. But what are you observing when you dwell in desire? You're observing a future you haven't lived and coding it as absence. You're looking at your future self through the lens of not yet, and in doing so, you're delaying the quantum collapse that brings it into form. Here's what they never taught you. Desire is not a roadmap towards something. It's a breadcrumb trail back to something, back to a self you already are, in a timeline where it's already done. And the more you chase it, the more you reinforce the illusion that it's not yours. Think about it. When you desperately want love, your body vibrates with the absence of intimacy. When you obsess over money, your heart beats to the rhythm of scarcity. When you crave freedom, your breath shortens with the pressure of being trapped. So even though your mind is screaming yes, your field is whispering no. And in the quantum universe, the field doesn't listen to your thoughts. It listens to your frequency. And here's the disturbing truth that few dare to face. The more attached you are to having it, the more evidence you generate of not having it. This is the hidden feedback loop of lack. Every time you check if it's arrived, you collapse a reality where it hasn't. Every time you try to control how and when, you reinforce the belief that it's not natural for you. Every time you visualize but still doubt, you create interference in the field. So the question is no longer, how do I get what I want? The real question is, why am I still vibrating as the version of me who doesn't already have it? This is the quantum key, and once you grasp it, you unlock a level of creation that looks, to the outside world, like magic. But let's go deeper. What if your desires weren't yours in the personal sense, but signals embedded in the field? Pre-coded invitations to expand into the next version of you? What if wanting wasn't a flaw, but a GPS ping from your own future? And the pain isn't because it's missing, it's because you're misaligned with the version of you who already holds it. This changes how we relate to longing. Because now, desire isn't something to suppress, but neither is it something to obey blindly. Desire becomes a portal, a vibrational transmission. And your job is not to chase it, but to tune to it. But how do you tune to something you can't yet see? That's the incomplete puzzle your soul came here to solve. Because the answer isn't found in the doing, it's found in the being. This is where most manifestation teachings fall short. They focus on strategy, scripting, rituals, vision boards. But the quantum field doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your coherence, the alignment between your thoughts, emotions, and actions. And if even one of those is out of sync, the wave doesn't collapse. You don't attract your future, you tune into it. But wait, if it's already done, then why can't you feel it yet? Why does it still seem far away? Why does it hurt so much to want it? Because there's a memory trapped in your nervous system. A code that says, this is not safe. This is not possible. This is not me. And that memory, often unconscious, is collapsing a different timeline. A timeline where nothing changes. A timeline where desire is a loop of waiting, a loop of hoping, a loop of almost. And unless that memory is rewritten, energetically and somatically, you will keep orbiting the life you know, while glimpsing the one you crave. So what now? We break the loop. We stop chasing, and start remembering. Because the version of you who already has it is not somewhere out there. It's encoded in your field. It's whispering through your desires. It's hidden in your longings. And it's waiting, not to be summoned, but to be chosen. In the next chapter, we'll reveal how your brain is already accessing this future without your permission, and how to use it consciously to shift timelines. You're not just imagining a better life, you're neurologically remembering it. But more on that in a moment. There's something strange about memory. It's supposed to move in one direction, from past to present, like ink dripping backward through the river of time. But that's only true if you believe the mind is a storage device instead of what it truly is, an antenna. Because when you quiet the noise long enough, something mysterious begins to happen. You start receiving impressions, ideas, flashes, not of what has been, but of what wants to be. Scenarios you've never lived but feel intimately familiar. Emotions without a story. Images without context. Why does a certain version of success feel so real even though it hasn't happened? Why do some futures feel like déjà vu? It's because your brain doesn't just remember the past, it remembers the future. Not metaphorically, neurologically. Recent studies in neuroscience, especially in the field of neuroplasticity and predictive coding, have revealed that the human brain is fundamentally a prediction machine. It doesn't passively observe reality. It constantly constructs it. Every perception, every thought, every feeling is a projection shaped by prior data. But here's the twist. When your inner world is dominated by a future vision, and that vision is repeated often enough with enough emotional charge, the brain updates its model. It begins to treat the imagined future as memory, and once the future is remembered, the body begins to follow. Your nervous system doesn't care if something is physically real. It only cares if the signal is consistent. That's why people can suffer from trauma they never consciously remember, or heal from experiences they haven't lived yet. The body keeps the score, but it doesn't ask for a date on the memory. Joe Dispenza calls this neurochemical conditioning. When you rehearse a future event with enough clarity and emotion, your brain wires it as if it already happened. That's not positive thinking. That's neural installation. And once installed, your body becomes a magnet to experiences that match that inner imprint. It shifts what you notice, what you act on, what you attract, and what you collapse from the field of infinite potential. But this only works when you feel it. Visualization alone is weak. It's a sketch without color, a blueprint without voltage. For the future to become memory, it must be felt with the same intensity you feel the past. Your heart must race as if the success is already here. Your breath must deepen as if the love has already arrived. Your posture must shift as if you are already safe, wealthy, alive. Without this emotional signature, the brain files your vision under fantasy. But when emotion is added, especially elevated states like gratitude, joy, awe, the brain switches the label from imagine to remember. This is where science begins to echo ancient truths. Because mystics have always said that time is not linear, that the soul exists beyond chronology, that your future self is not ahead of you in a straight line, but exists alongside you, vibrating at a different frequency. And when your brain begins to resonate with that version, you start to entangle with it. Quantum entanglement in physics describes particles that remain connected across space and time. Change one, and the other responds instantly. The same principle applies to consciousness. When you align your thoughts, emotions, and actions with a specific future, you entangle with the self that already lives it. And once entangled, your current reality begins to reorganize itself. Subtly at first, then obviously. Coincidences become patterns. Opportunities appear without effort. People shift around you, not because you're lucky, but because you're no longer matching the field of your past. But there's a catch, and it's where most people sabotage the process. The body doesn't like unfamiliar emotions, even if they're positive. You've been conditioned for years, maybe decades, to feel disappointment, stress, struggle. These emotions become home, and anything outside of that emotional baseline feels unsafe, even joy. That's why it's easier to relapse into fear than to sustain gratitude. The nervous system craves what's known, not what's true. So when you begin to install a future memory of abundance, love, freedom, your body resists. It tenses. It doubts. It tries to drag you back to the predictable, to the familiar suffering of the past. And unless you're aware of this resistance, you'll interpret it as a sign that it's not working. You'll stop the rehearsal. You'll let the doubt collapse the waveform. You'll abandon the future before it can collapse into the now. But here's the truth most never realize. Resistance doesn't mean it's wrong. Resistance means it's working, because the very act of choosing a new emotional reality threatens the survival of your old self. And the ego, the mental construct built around safety, identity, and control, will fight to preserve what's known. It will whisper, "This isn't you." It will say, "This is unrealistic." It will use logic, memory, even your spiritual practice against you. But none of that is real. It's noise, feedback, static from a fading frequency. You are not your past. You are the field of consciousness choosing its next expression. And the more consistently you install the memory of a future you, the more you override the neurochemical dominance of history. You rewire the mind to expect miracles. You retrain the nervous system to trust pleasure. You shift the body into coherence, and coherence is the key. Because in a coherent state, where the heart and brain are in vibrational harmony, your field becomes powerful enough to collapse probabilities into form. This is the true science of quantum creation. Not wishing, not hoping, but remembering who you already are in a future that is whispering back through the veil. And the only question left is, will you keep living the default program of the past, or will you become the living memory of what's already waiting? You're collapsing a reality right now. Not through effort, not through strategy, but through something far more powerful: your observation. And the question is, what exactly are you observing? Because if your mind is fixated on what's missing, your heart entangled with what hasn't happened, and your energy centered around what could go wrong, then you're not observing the future you desire. You're reinforcing the version you fear, and the quantum field obeys not your preferences, but your attention. In quantum physics, the observer effect reveals that the mere act of observing a system influences its outcome. Particles behave like waves, infinite, undefined, until they are observed. Then, and only then, do they choose a position. That moment of collapse is creation. And here's what most people miss. You are always observing something, and thus, always collapsing something. The problem is not that manifestation doesn't work. It's that it works perfectly, just not in the direction you expect. Every thought, every emotional fixation, every internal dialogue is a form of observation. And most people unconsciously are master observers of lack. They track what's not working. They analyze why it hasn't happened. They obsess over timing, methods, signs. They look at their current reality and interpret it as proof of the future, instead of recognizing it as an echo of their past vibration. This is the trap. When you wait for reality to give you permission to believe, you are no longer the observer. You become the observed, reactive, passive, entangled with a timeline not of your choosing. And the field responds. Neville Goddard said it with mystical precision. To be conscious of being poor while praying for riches is to be rewarded with that which you are conscious of being. In other words, you can't collapse abundance while observing scarcity. You can't generate a timeline of love while your awareness is fused with the ache of loneliness. Your attention doesn't lie. It tells the field what to organize around. The truth is, you've probably been collapsing the wrong reality for years, not because you lack power, but because you didn't know how to wield it. Your attention has been hijacked by fear, by old stories, by survival patterns passed down for generations. These aren't just psychological imprints, they're quantum instructions. They tell the field, this is what I recognize. This is what feels like me. This is home. But what if home is outdated? What if the self you've been referencing is not the one you're becoming, but the one you're trying to escape? That's the observer's dilemma. The more you fight your current reality, the more you energize it. Resistance is not neutral. It's a form of observation. And every time you resist what is, you collapse more of the same. Not because the universe is cruel, but because the field is loyal. It matches your signal, not your slogans. And when your signal is, I am not there yet, the field responds with more evidence that you're not. So how do you change this? Not by controlling outcomes, not by obsessively tracking progress, but by shifting the identity of the observer. You don't need to visualize harder. You need to become the self who would naturally observe what you want as already done. You need to step into the frequency of inevitability, the inner posture of course it's mine. Not because you said the right affirmations, but because your entire being is vibrating in coherence with the outcome. And coherence is the secret most skip. When your brain and heart are in harmony, when your thoughts match your emotions and your emotions match your actions, your field becomes coherent. And a coherent field is precise. It doesn't send mixed signals. It doesn't collapse chaos. It creates clarity. And clarity is what bends the quantum soup of possibility into a timeline that matches your truth. But here's the twist. Clarity is not certainty. It's surrender. It's the willingness to be so deeply aligned with your future self that you no longer need proof. You are the proof. Your vibration becomes so stable, so embodied, that the external world has no choice but to reorganize around you. But the mind will rebel. It will point to your bank account, your relationship status, your body, your past, and say, see? It's not working. That's the test. That's the threshold. The old self pleading for your attention one last time. Because if it can just get you to observe lack again, it can survive. But you're not here to survive your old life. You're here to collapse it, gently, consciously, completely. And here's something most never understand. Timelines don't shift through force. They shift through fidelity. The more faithful you are to the version of you that lives the future, the more your field begins to echo that version. You'll notice subtle things first, a different kind of thought, a new emotional baseline, people treating you differently. Not because they changed, but because your field did. And your field is the blueprint. Quantum physics tells us that reality is probabilistic, not fixed. At every moment, infinite versions of you exist, and your attention is the selector. Your emotional charge is the amplifier. Your belief is the stabilizer. Put those together, and you don't just observe a new reality, you become it. But the final piece is often the hardest. You must release the need to see it before you feel it, because when you feel it without needing to see it, that's when you know the timeline has already collapsed. The body doesn't lie. You can script the perfect affirmations, visualize the dream life with crystal clarity, recite intentions daily. But if your nervous system is still wired for the past, you're not broadcasting the future. You're broadcasting fear. And the quantum field doesn't respond to your goals. It responds to your embodiment. You've heard it before. Feel as if it's already done. But this isn't about pretending. This isn't about tricking the universe with fake smiles and surface-level gratitude. This is about becoming the vibrational signature of the timeline you desire, not thinking it, not wishing it, living it, emotionally, energetically, biologically, before there's any evidence. This is the most radical act of creation. to feel ahead of the curve of your physical reality, to embody a state of love before love arrives, to feel abundant before the money shows up, to walk as freedom while the cage still seems closed. And it's not delusion, it's quantum alignment. Here's what neuroscience reveals. The body doesn't know the difference between an experience that's vividly imagined and one that's physically lived. If you rehearse a future reality with enough emotional intensity, your brain wires it. Your body responds with the same chemical signals. Your heart shifts its rhythm. Your field recalibrates. And suddenly you're not just thinking about the new timeline, you're inside it. The moment your inner world becomes more real than the outer world, the field begins to bend. Because in quantum mechanics, reality is not objective. It's participatory. Your internal state doesn't follow your external conditions. It creates them. The field isn't reacting to your circumstances. It's reacting to the signal you emit. And the most coherent signal you can send is the one of already being. Not needing, not waiting, being. But here lies the challenge. Your body has been conditioned, possibly for decades, to live in a certain frequency. Stress, vigilance, not enoughness. These patterns aren't just mental, they're somatic, stored in your fascia, your breath, your posture. So when you begin to embody the new, when you breathe deeper, soften your chest, lift your chin, open your heart, the old frequency will resist. It will whisper, "You're faking it." It will try to pull you back into the emotional gravity of your old timeline, and in that moment you must choose. Because here's the truth. You don't step into a new reality when it arrives. You step into it before it does. You cross the vibrational threshold in the unseen, and the seen follows. This is not wishful thinking. It's electromagnetic causality. Your heart emits the most powerful magnetic field in your body. When you sustain elevated emotions, gratitude, joy, compassion, your heart enters coherence. And when your heart is coherent, your brain follows. The two begin to synchronize, creating a unified field around your body that can be measured. And in that state, your influence on the quantum field amplifies exponentially. But coherence requires practice. It's not a one-time visualization. It's a daily devotion to becoming the version of you who no longer needs to force outcomes, because you are the outcome. This is embodiment. When the future you seek becomes so natural, so familiar, that your body no longer doubts it. Your cells start coding for it. Your actions align effortlessly. You speak differently. You walk differently. People respond differently. Why? Because you're no longer signaling a desire. You're signaling a reality. That's the shift, and it's subtle, almost imperceptible at first. You may wake up feeling a little lighter. You may notice you're not reacting to old triggers. You may feel peace where there used to be striving. And that's when the field begins to mirror you back. But the ego doesn't like peace. It wants drama, control, proof. So even as your field expands, your mind may try to contract. It may beg for reassurance. Where is it? Why hasn't it shown up yet? And if you listen to that voice, you collapse the wave back into uncertainty. So instead, you pause. You breathe. You return to the embodiment. You remind yourself, if I feel it now, I no longer need it to come. And in that moment, paradoxically, it moves toward you. Not because you chased it, but because you became magnetic to it. This is why the most powerful manifestors are not the ones who work the hardest. They're the ones who are most emotionally familiar with their future. To them, it's not a fantasy. It's a memory, a frequency already visited in dreams, in silence, in meditation, and the body remembers. So ask yourself, what does it feel like to already live your desired reality? Where does it live in your body? What posture do you carry? What tone do you speak in? What decisions feel natural from that place? And then, make this feeling your home. Visit it daily, breathe into it, walk in it, until one day, you realize you're not embodying a timeline anymore. You've become it. type in the comments, "I'm already living it." Let this be your declaration, not to the world but to the field. Let it ripple into your cells, your choices, your tomorrow. Because once you claim it internally, the external must rearrange. Not out of magic, out of quantum fidelity. Desire is a signal, a frequency spike, a flare from your higher self revealing what's possible for you, and what's already real in another vibrational address. But desire is not meant to linger. It's not designed to be permanent. It's a messenger, not a home. The moment you keep desire alive for too long, it decays. It morphs into lack, into craving, into an emotional pattern that says, "This isn't me yet." And that's where most get trapped. In the loop, the quantum loop. It begins innocently enough. You feel the spark of a vision. You glimpse the future. You taste a new frequency. And for a moment, your entire being lights up. You're in resonance. You're aligned. You're calling it in. But then, you start waiting. And with the waiting comes the questioning. With the questioning comes the checking. With the checking comes the noticing that it's not here yet. And so begins the subtle collapse. You loop back into the identity that birthed the desire, instead of the one who fulfills it. You start to observe reality again through the eyes of the seeker, not the creator. This loop becomes self-sustaining. You desire, you visualize, you doubt, you wait, you reinforce. And the longer you stay in this oscillation, the more your nervous system normalizes the gap between who you are and who you're becoming. It starts to feel natural to almost get there, to live in a constant state of preparation, to dwell in almost. But the quantum field doesn't respond to preparation. It responds to presence. It responds to the moment you no longer need the desire, because you've become the one who embodies it. That's the inflection point, when desire melts into identity, when the fire of longing becomes the warmth of knowing, not because you're detached in apathy, but because you've stepped into coherence so deep, so stable, that the desire has fulfilled its purpose. It pulled you into the vibration of your next self. And once you're there, you don't need the desire anymore. You are the thing you once wanted. This is when time folds. This is when you stop projecting reality into the future and begin expressing it from the future. Here, now, in every breath. The illusion of delay dissolves. The field, no longer receiving signals of someday, shifts into already. And because you're no longer chasing, the timeline has nothing left to resist. It collapses, quietly, elegantly, inevitably. But there's a danger. The ego doesn't like identity shifts that happen without its control. It will sneak in, wearing spiritual language, whispering that you're delusional, that you're bypassing, that you're forgetting to do the work. It will try to reattach to desire, to rekindle the wanting, because wanting gives the ego a role. It gives it something to fix, improve, manifest. Identity, on the other hand, is arrival, and arrival terrifies the part of you addicted to the becoming. So you must stay vigilant. You must notice when the desire tries to creep back in, not as inspiration, but as a distraction. You must observe when the loop reopens, not with judgment, but with awareness. Because the loop is subtle. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It says, just check one more time. It says, visualize again, just in case. It says, you're not doing enough. But your enoughness is not measured by effort. It's measured by frequency. And once your frequency stabilizes in the field of already having, nothing else is required. This is why embodiment is so powerful. It becomes the end of the loop. You no longer process reality through the filter of desire. You navigate it as a match. You make choices not from what will get me there, but from what naturally aligns with who I am now. And this changes everything. Because now your decisions stop signaling separation. Your speech stops reaffirming the weight. Your inner dialogue no longer includes the phrase, when it comes. You act as the one who has. And in doing so, the universe mirrors that back with precision. This is the quantum shift from seeker to source. You stop broadcasting the energy of I want and begin radiating I am. You stop negotiating with life and start collaborating with it. You move from prayer to presence, from longing to landing. And in this field of identity, you become undeniable. People feel it. Opportunities feel it. The field feels it. Because identity is the most powerful spell you can cast. It doesn't ask. It declares. And once declared, the universe organizes around it. That's why your deepest desires are not goals. They are invitations, blueprints, coordinates from a version of you who already exists. And when you embody that version, the need for desire dissolves. Not because you've given up, but because you've integrated. The signal is no longer being broadcast outward. It's radiating inward. The field is no longer being told what to bring. It's being shown what you are. And the field always reflects what you are. The future is not a destination. It's a frequency. It doesn't arrive with time. It reveals itself through alignment. And the moment you stop trying to chase it, to attract it, to manifest it, and instead begin to remember it, everything changes. Because remembering your future is not a metaphor. It's a vibrational fact. You've already lived the version of you that has what you desire. You've already walked the path, met the people, touched the reality, not in this timeline, but in the quantum field of infinite timelines, where every potential self exists, encoded, waiting for your consciousness to attune. That's why your desire feels so specific, so personal, so inevitable. It's not random. It's not fantasy. It's a resonance, a pull from the version of you that has already become. And your job is not to invent that life. Your job is to become the emotional evidence that it's already real. To walk not as someone who is trying to get there, but as someone who knows they've already been. This is the shift from time-based creation to field-based embodiment. You stop measuring progress by external signs. You stop asking, how long will it take? Because time becomes irrelevant in the presence of coherence. The truth is, if you feel it now, you already have it. And if you don't feel it now, chasing it will only push it further away. So what does it mean to live from the memory of the future? It means your energy precedes your evidence. It means you feel peace before the solution arrives. You feel confidence before the path is clear. You feel abundance before the transaction happens. Not to impress the universe, but because your nervous system has rehearsed it so deeply that it no longer doubts. You are no longer trying to prove anything. You are no longer trying to become anything. You are simply staying loyal to the version of you that already is. And from that loyalty, from that unwavering coherence, a reality begins to unfold around you that matches the frequency you've stabilized, not by accident, not by luck, but by quantum law. Because the field doesn't give you what you beg for. It mirrors who you're being. This is why effort alone can never create sustainable change. You can hustle all you want from the vibration of not enough, and still find yourself circling the same results. You can pray with desperation and never collapse the wave. You can visualize endlessly and still live in fear. Because frequency is the language of reality, and the only way to speak fluently is to feel it. That's why your greatest work is not in doing more, it's in remembering better. Remember the version of you who already knows, who already chose, who already became. Feel their breath in yours. Feel their calm in your chest. Feel their clarity in your decisions. And walk in that remembrance, not as an act of faith, but as an act of identity. Because in the quantum field, who you are now is the only vote that counts. You're not collapsing your future. You're collapsing your memory of it into form. And if you can hold that vibration, even when the 3D tries to convince you otherwise, you become the field. You no longer react to life. You orchestrate it. Not through control, but through coherence. This is the new paradigm of creation. This is where manifestation becomes movement, where desire becomes data, where thought becomes timeline, and where your reality, finally, begins to reflect what your soul has known all along. So pause now. Feel into your field, not the one society told you to chase, not the one your trauma taught you to expect, but the one your higher self has been waiting for you to reclaim. It's already here. You don't need to wait another day, another sign, another validation. You're already living it. And the more you stabilize in that knowing, the faster the world mirrors it back. If this message activated something in you, even just a spark, then you're ready to go deeper, to go from theory to embodiment, from information to transformation, from remembering to radiating. That's exactly why we created the ebook Awaken Your Quantum Power. It's not just a book. It's a full-frequency recalibration with powerful quantum teachings, guided methods, and a practical workbook that helps you integrate all of this into your daily field. The link is in the pinned comment. Not for those who are curious, but for those who are ready to collapse their next reality. You already have it. Now choose it.